really defining who you are as a business, what you want to do for your customers, and bringing people on board that share those same values. You should be instilling in them on a regular basis what your mission and values are.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Drew Pearson. You are listening to the Pearson Perspective. This is a deep dive into the stories and mindsets of successful business operators and investors. Let's go have some fun. All right, today I am with Dr. Krista Peterson. I'm so thankful she joined us on the show today. She is with Culture Index, and Culture Index has really been instrumental in helping me understand the people side of business. So, Dr. Peterson, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
This is going to be a lot of fun, y'all. Really just learning about kind of how people tick and the different personalities folks tend to fall into. Before we get into all that, why don't you just tell us how you got started with Culture Index and what makes you so interested in this field?
Sure. So my background is actually in clinical psychology. I started, we were talking about before, I started with a laser focus on forensic psychology. So I knew in grad school that was going to be my primary focus. And so I worked in that field. I owned a forensic practice in Minneapolis for 5 or 6 years, and then knew that I needed to have something else as a balance between the two, because working for the court systems in Minnesota, it's highly stressful, and you see a lot of very difficult cases. So I got recruited to Culture Index just from somebody that I had known over the years, someone that founded Culture Index program, and had basically told me, hey, I have this really cool tool. I think, for you being a psychologist, that you're gonna love it. And so he surveyed me, which is what we do at Culture Index. We survey people, and we gather a lot of information from the data from the survey. So he was able to tell me more about myself than I had learned in the 9 years that I was in graduate school, taking every psychology test possible. And so I was pretty floored by that. So, and then also skeptical. So I got into the data and tried to figure out what was wrong with this thing. How did it figure out all these things about me that I hadn't necessarily learned before? And everything fell in line. And again, I was floored by, in 2 questions, that he was able to capture really who I am and how I function at work. So came on board with Culture Index. It's been about 10 years now. I got so busy with the business that I ended up shutting my forensic practice down, and now I solely focus on working with executives to help them get the right people in the right seats.
That's awesome. I feel like I can definitely relate to part of that story. After I took the survey and you were telling me things about myself, and honestly, I was kind of like half pissed and half shocked. Like, you don't even know me, but you were telling me things like, oh, you probably like solo activities like fishing as opposed to a group activity like a softball tournament or something. I was just like, yeah, I hate these kind of group things. And yes, I love solo events. And it was really cool to kind of see, wow, you kind of nailed this.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. And so for as long as I've been doing this, we work with a lot of different kinds of organizations. So my portfolio is pretty property management, real estate, heavy, medical too, just with my background. And it's pretty amazing the things that we can do within an organization to kind of help everybody start rowing in the right direction, make everything streamlined. So especially in the market that we're in right now, where everybody's kind of fighting for talent, it's really important that once you get the right people in the right seats, how do you deploy that talent so that you can retain them over time?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that a little bit more. But before we get there, I know, at least personally, before we started working together, I hear personality test, I hear survey, I think like, okay, DISC survey. I know what personality tests are. help walk us through what's really different about Culture Index, and nothing against a disc survey or anything else, but what kind of sets y'all apart?
Yeah, so a couple different things. The founder of our program, his name is Gary Wallstrom. He's been in the industry. Him and his wife, actually, Cecilia Bruning. She's our CEO. Actually, they've been in the industry for 50 plus years. And the founder really has worked for a couple of our competitors. And what he found was that some of these longer tests that take you 45 minutes to an hour and give you this big fat printout of who the person
Mm-hmm.
is, it just wasn't getting utilized because CEOs and executives, you guys are busy, right? You don't have time to be looking at a 30-page packet trying to decipher psychological jargon. And so the goal was to make something short and do it the right way. Where we had a research psychologist actually create this, and so it's 2 questions. It takes 7 minutes to complete, and as we've both talked about, it gathers a lot of information about a person. So that's one key difference is the length of time it takes to complete the survey.
Mm-hmm.
Our accuracy is also very high. We have a 92% accuracy rating. So that also sets us apart. And then finally, he hired on advisors like myself that have been business owners before and that also are more visionary ourselves. So we're able to think and speak at the level that many of you executives are at.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
really interesting. And so, without kind of going into all the details, there are kind of four main categories within Culture Index. So, can we talk about some of those categories, and then maybe how, specifically for real estate businesses, maybe certain personalities that may fit well in certain seats and not?
Yeah, sure. So we are looking at, like I said before, we have 7 work-related traits, and then those 7 traits kind of are designed into a constellation. And the 4 main categories that we kind of put people into are one, visionary. And so think about visionary as those that see more and before. You kind of want to hitch your train to them, and they take you where you want to go. Okay, so more macro thinking, future oriented. These are your risk takers, and those that are constantly thinking bigger, better, stronger, faster. Then we have your research category, and I want you to think about those people as your tactical problem solvers, or those that find tactical solutions to the strategy or vision. So these are your boots on the ground people that help you get there, do the day-to-day type stuff. And then we have our social category, which we think about these individuals as those that market your products or your services to the public. They are your morale builders, your positive individuals within an organization. So they buy you not only customer retention, but they also buy you kind of internal employee retention. Okay. So their gift is really building and maintaining relationships with people. And then finally, we have our organizational category, and these are your people that think in the present. These people do the tasks associated with the vision. And so when we think about organizational design as a whole, we need a mixture of all these 4 types of people in order to function successfully. And that'll vary. How much you need in each category depends on where you are in the business. Are you in a growth phase? Or are you in a maintenance phase? How your business is structured and the type of business that you're in will depend on how many types you need, again, in each one of those categories. You asked me about real estate property management too.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of a selfish question, and I know a lot of our viewers are in the real estate world. Maybe we could talk about kind of like an operations type person, on the ground property manager, and maybe like investor relations. Those are kind of 3 good categories.
Okay. So, and then we could even break that in further into real estate versus property management. But so in property management, again, it depends on who's in the head seat. So we want to put people around you to help you go full speed. So it depends on your profile and what you need in order to help you be whole, essentially. And so if we're talking about Drew in your organization, one of the things that, I don't mean this in a bad way, but that's not your strong suit, is attention to detail. You don't want to get into the minutia. You want to, see where you're going and get there and not be dealing with all the little stuff on the way. And so we need to put people around you that you can delegate tasks and some of that minutia to. So again, you can keep going full speed. And so putting somebody that can also deductively think, because that's how you think. So more of that research category, technical experts, scholars, craftsmen, those individuals that can come behind you. And they do really well in a lot of different areas in property management. So if we think about maintenance in general, some of your deductive, tactical problem solvers that once they understand, what the overall goal is, you can kind of leave them alone to work independently and execute on the tasks at hand.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So those people tend to do best in those roles. If we're thinking about property managers, there, at least from the clients that I do have, there's kind of two models. There's like departmental property management versus portfolio property management. And so if you have a departmental system, you really need, someone in a property management role that has a high level of attention to detail. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of tasks associated with that role. And in addition to that, you have to have someone that can see the train coming to a degree, right? Because there's a lot of problems in property management.
Absolutely.
In order to keep our owners happy, we have to make sure that we're on top of those things. So we need someone that has a lot of attention to detail and that can also think in front of themselves to a degree. Social ability, that really depends on the client, how much you need in that area. It can be helpful in a leasing capacity where you're trying to get your units released. So we maybe want somebody that's more outgoing, that can really get out into the public and let others know that, here's our property, here's what we do, here's what we stand for. This is why you want to lease with us. So there could be some value to social ability there. And then I have other clients that it's more, they've got tons and tons of leads. They don't really need to be doing any outside marketing or sales. And you just have those that are kind of order taking, getting on a phone, making the calls, and kind of keeping everything organized in that space. So that's kind of property management leasing. Business development, we kind of touched on that a little bit. So maybe you need someone that's going out and knocking on doors. And then you need a little bit more assertiveness, a little bit more proactivity, some competitiveness to the person. Mm-hmm. But again, if you're more of an order taker, you don't necessarily need that. We just need somebody that's going to build a relationship, maintain the relationship, but they don't necessarily have to go out and hunt in terms of business development.
Right. And that's kind of our second category, right? Our second bucket of personality types.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, and then internally, like administrative type stuff, we get kind of into the organizational categories. Those that are answering phones, maybe those that are managing inventory, any of the kind of little details associated with what everybody else is doing. The organizational patterns kind of keep everything nice and clean.
Yeah. I just know personally, it's just been so enlightening to understand what I'm better at and then what I'm not good at. And you really helped me kind of bring in other people. Ashley, who's on our team, she just does a phenomenal job of picking up those pieces and those details and making sure that stuff gets done. Culture Index, it's really been a game changer. It really has for our organization.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah. So what advice would you have for folks who are maybe growing a business, or maybe they have 10 or 20 employees and they're kind of on the fence? To me, this is a no-brainer. Like the data and the technology is there to understand people in a non-manipulative way, but how do we best utilize people with their God-given talents? What would you say to those people who say, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if we really need this in our organization?
Sure. Well, I'm sure your listeners have had experiences where they've had someone come in for an interview, and their resume was perfect. They interviewed perfectly. And then 3 to 6 months later, they just couldn't keep up with the responsibilities assigned. And so you've got kind of jaded in the interview process. So what we can do beforehand is we help you define really what's necessary for the role, what you need at this point in time in your business. So I'm not necessarily telling you need this profile or that profile or this trait or that trait. You're telling me based on what are the KPIs for the role? What are key performance indicators? What do you expect this person to do? How does this position add value to your organization? And then we have a job analysis survey that actually causes you to break down the job, and that will generate a constellation just like you would see with somebody's survey results. And then we kind of go from there. So we design this benchmark or this template for the role, and then you would essentially go out and match people based on their characteristics to that benchmark. And so what it does for you is it takes the guesswork out of people from a hiring perspective, right? So we know we're bringing on the person that can actually do what we want them to do. So now that's the first step in the battle, right? The second step is now once you have them on board, how do we get the most out of them? How do we maximize that talent? Okay, so a lot of the times when I go into organizations and we do that initial audit, I find that there's a lot of individuals that aren't fully leveraged. Okay, and they're bored and they're on the cusp of turning over, and so we can kind of find those things right away that you may not have known, and save you a lot of pain and heartache later on when they turn over. Because it costs you something when somebody turns over. It costs the business. It costs the team. It costs the manager, and it costs the person. And so if we can get ahead of these things beforehand, we can save you a lot of money to your bottom line.
Interesting. And so we haven't done this a whole lot. We've kind of grown a lot lately. Is it recommended to kind of resurvey your team every 6 to 12 months to making sure that we're still where we need to be, or is it just kind of one and done?
No. We want you. We give you unlimited access to this stuff so that you can resurvey people every 12 to 18 months if they stay in the same role. But say you're going to promote somebody. Well, we want to resurvey them 3 to 6 months after that to see how they're acclimating to their new role. And us as leaders can look at what's happening, if they're making any kind of adjustments and what they need from a management perspective in order to fully get acclimated to that role. So 3 to 6 months after any kind of changes within their role, same thing with a new hire. So we survey them prior to hire, right? So we know who they are, what they're going to bring to the table. And then we want to survey them 3 to 6 months after they get started to see what else they might need from us going forward so that we can, again, fully leverage that individual.
Yeah.
And you have the ability to always have the pulse on your culture that way. Where people are at, if there's any kind of problems going on. It's really kind of a hidden employee engagement survey to a degree. And why wouldn't you want to know what your people need from you?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'd like to think of it, maybe you disagree, but I don't think of this as like the magic silver bullet, but it certainly gives us just a better percentage to put people in the right seats. And I think that's what it's all about,
Right.
A better chance to be successful.
Yeah. I always tell my clients, it's kind of like a pie chart. I want you, once I get my leaders in training, I tell them to put 70% of their stock, and that's a really conservative level because, again, we have a 92% accuracy. So I go down to 70%, saying, give 70% of your faith into our data because it's been heavily researched. And then it's also important to know what they've done before. So resumes do matter in a sense. And then putting 15% of stock in the interview, getting eyes on them, and are they going to fit in our culture based on our conversations with them, their values, why do they want to come work for us, et cetera. So it's kind of putting all of those pieces together and then making a decision based on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with that. So I want to
Mm-hmm.
talk about two more things. One is kind of remote culture and how this all works in the new world. And then two, something else you've really helped me with is the interview process. A couple of years ago, I'd never hired anybody, and this
Mm-hmm.
was a really scary thing for me. And there's kind of different levels of hires. There's hires to just kind of take care of little menial tasks, and then there's hires to help run your business.
Mm-hmm.
And you've just really been supportive and given me tools to kind of navigate those situations. Let's walk through that for folks who haven't hired a lot in the past. Are there certain questions that you like? Do you like to run an interview in a certain way? How do you think about that?
So when it comes to interviewing, really what you're doing, if you're using something like Culture Index, you're really using the interview to validate what you already know about them. Okay. And in addition to that, I really like anything that you can quantify. And so I don't know if your listeners have heard of the top grading model, but I tend to recommend top grading, or there's a book called Who that really outlines the importance of
Yep.
quantifying your interview questions and asking your interviewees the exact same questions across the board and using some sort of scoring system. And you don't necessarily have to use top grading, but coming up with a scoring system of your own. So say that's 0 to 5, going through each question and giving somebody a grade based on how they responded to that question. And what that does for you is, say you have 10 candidates. Psychology shows us that we tend to remember the first person that we speak to and the last person that we speak to, but the ones in between kind of get lost. And so what the scoring system does is it really gives you an objective way to go back in and say, oh, well, candidate number 4 actually scored the highest. Let's go back and look at why.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, your interview questions should be structured in a way that aligns with your mission and value statement, because we really want to make sure at this point that they're going to fit within our culture and work well with the rest of the team and the goals that we have for the business. And so thinking about how their responses, again, tie back to, are they going to be a good fit with us, and do they align with our values?
Yeah. I feel like I've made every mistake possible in the interview process. And Who is just such a great book. It gives you so many
Mm-hmm.
great tools. There's some hard work on the front end because you have to think about this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's really a great format.
Yeah. The other
Um,
thing I'd say, oh, go ahead.
no, 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 go ahead.
The other thing I would say about interviewing in general is you have to remember that you have your own internal biases, right? We all have our own unique personality characteristics, and those certainly come into play in the interview. So having more than one person do the interview, having separate interviews, gives multiple perspectives on the person and what we might have seen versus what somebody else might have seen from the individual. So
That's
just make sure you
interesting.
keep your own personality characteristics and trait. So an example would be if you're a highly social person, you really like to connect with others, and you're interviewing someone that might not be in that social category. The social patterns interview really well because their gift is paying attention to people. So they're
Right.
watching your body language and they're matching it. They're able to kind of really verbally do gymnastics around you, so they can jump from thing to thing to thing and not need a lot of time to think about it. Whereas someone that maybe isn't as social takes more time to respond because they're really internally processing what they want to say to formulate a good response. And so, if you have an interviewer that's highly social, they're not going to be able to connect with that person. And so then they think, well, I don't really know if they're going to fit with the team. But really, what it is maybe that person just doesn't necessarily fit with you, but would be great for the role that you're looking to hire for.
And that's the power of your program. I mean, that right there is the magic. That's so cool. As I feel like some of my best long term relationships and friends are the latter category. I'm kind of quick to become friends with in the first group, and they're great people, and then we can kind of move on and diverge for whatever reason. But my
Sure.
long-term core group is a little more thoughtful and slower to respond.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, we brought up culture a couple of times. The business is called Culture Index. This is something I'm really trying to work on. My personality pattern. I haven't been in large teams before. I've been much more solo, lone wolf, whatever, for a lot of my life, and I'm trying to build a team and build a culture. How do we do that? What does culture mean to you, and how have you seen other successful organizations grow a good culture?
Okay, well, culture starts at the top, so it starts with you, right? And so, again, we talked a little bit about this already, but really defining who you are as a business, what you want to do for your customers, and bringing people on board that share those same values. Why do they want to come work for you? We want to bring people on that it's not just another job, that they feel passionate about what they're going to be doing. And then you should be instilling in them on a regular basis what your mission and values are. I don't know if you have heard of, there's a book, it's called Excellence Wins by Horst Schultz. And he
I have
is
not heard that book.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Okay.
Horst Schultz is the man that ran Ritz-Carlton for many, many years. Okay. And so he has, I think it's 26 kind of steps of service or key values that the Ritz-Carlton employees should all hold. And they have it, all the employees have it on a little placard card, and they every morning meeting that they have before work, they go over one of those principles, and they talk about how are we going to demonstrate these principles to our clients on all day today or all week this week. And they make sure that they hit every single principle within a month's time. And so they are living and breathing the values of the Ritz-Carlton, and it shows. I mean, how successful is that hotel chain?
Absolutely.
Okay. When you go there, you feel that they want you there, and it's just an experience to stay at one of those hotels, right? And so if we think about culture, that's how you build culture, is living and breathing what you stand for on a regular basis, doing what you say you're going to do to your employees, and fostering an environment that's where there's trust and there's respect.
It's so simple, but not easy to do.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's great. We've mentioned a couple of books here. We've mentioned Who, which is great. Excellence Wins, which I need to get. Are there any other books that have had an impact on you or any of your other clients?
Oh gosh, put me on the spot here.
And I don't know is fine too. You don't have to answer.
I like the EOS books, Entrepreneurial's Operating System books. So Rocket Fuel, which is the relationship between the integrator and the visionary. So the CEO and the COO, basically. And I like their organizational kind of structure model. So those two are good reads. What else? I've got this other one that I just started, The Road Less Stupid.
Okay.
Keith Cunningham. Right. So it talks a lot about making dumb mistakes on your way to growth. And so I'm like a quarter of the way through, but so far so good. He's very poignant. And I like stuff like that. So
great.
Yeah.
Well, I love some EOS too. They just came out with a new one called Process, which I'm reading right now, which is great. It's just getting those core processes down, so that you're consistent and people know what their roles are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, this has been a ton of fun today. Thanks so much for joining us on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Congrats on that new baby, and I hope you do well at the tournament, at the shooting tournament here in a month or so.
Yeah, thank you.
I would really appreciate it if you'd leave us a review on Spotify, Apple, or anywhere you're listening or watching to this show. Thanks so much for joining us on this audio adventure. Let's go have some fun.